The grass always looks greener on the other side. And when you're working your 9-to-5 job, having a business looks so much sexier, doesn't it? But you don't have to quit your job to be happy. Back in 2021, I quit my full-time job to pursue online content creation and coaching, just like how so many people were doing it. But a few months into it, I realized just how powerful a 9-to-5 job can be, how it can be an asset. So 6 months after quitting my job, I actually went back to working for another year. But this time around, it was really different because I was bringing in a different intentionality, a different mindset, way of thinking, and that allowed me to feel so much more happy and just at peace while I was working my 9-to-5 job. And I want you to also feel happy working your job, living your life. So I'm gonna be sharing some valuable lessons in today's video. Shall we begin? First things first, what are you looking for in a job? What does success look like to you? Are you looking for a job that just pays the bills, or a place for you to really enjoy socializing? Or do you want a title that's very sexy and prestigious, like the director title, the finance manager, or the doctor title? It's kind of like dating. What are you looking for in a partner? I used to be really picky. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted my partner to be of a certain height. I wanted them to look good, to have a certain level of education, have an ambitious career, to be growth-minded, all of that. And no wonder it was so hard for me today. I finally realized, though, at the core, what was most important to me was their character, their kindness, trustworthiness, loyalty, their strong work ethics, and being a hardworking person. And that's my boyfriend now. Once I let go of the need for him to be all of these, very external driven things, I realized that I was really happy with how he showed up in our relationship. And that is the same with your job. Your job doesn't have to self-actualize you or be perfect, just like how your partner doesn't have to be your soulmate, your therapist, your emotional support system, your whole community, and your whole life. My first job was a relentless climb up the corporate ladder, and it got really exhausting dealing with office politics, with ambitious people who became passive aggressive because of the competition. There was a lot of drama, and I was just not at peace. On the other hand, my second job, despite the pay cut, brought me so much more fulfillment and security. I really enjoyed working with my team. I really liked the company and my boss. I felt very safe and happy and just so much at peace. And because of this, I was able to build my side hustle, my business, from a more expansive place, and I had the energy to show up for it. I see so many people working a job they feel so miserable in just for the money, just for the company name on their resume, or just for the title. And they could be so much happier if they just took a pay cut for a better culture or better working hours. Because what's the point of more money when they just spend that money on things like excess shopping or drinking? Now, if you're on the other end of the spectrum, you're not feeling challenged at work, or your pay isn't very high, then you've got to ask yourself, how can I upgrade my skills so that they are worthy to my employer? Or maybe you want to build a part-time business or a side hustle to supplement the income. Your job can be one of your sources of income, one of the ways you serve other people in your life, and one of your successes. My second question is, how do you want to feel at work? It's estimated that the average person spends a third of their life at work, so that's about 90,000 hours, and that's if you don't include overtime hours. In my first job, I was constantly anxious for 3 years. I witnessed people get fired, get laid off. I saw how competitive people were. I saw great people quitting. I saw how I wasn't feeling valued, and I just couldn't really trust people, especially the higher ups. In my second job, I could trust everyone. I could trust my boss, and even when I made a mistake, my boss was very understanding and chose to support me. I don't know about you, but if I'm spending a third of my life at work, then I would prefer working in the latter environment where I feel at peace, I feel happy and safer with the people at work. You also want to make sure that you don't make your job your entire life. One of the mistakes people make is they make their job their only stream of income, their entire identity, their entire life. Because if you lose your job, you're going to feel confused about your identity and your worth. Instead, you want to leverage your job, leverage the money you make from it, and invest it into stock market investments, invest it into yourself. You can leverage your job, the skills, the information, the wisdom, the experiences you're gaining for a side hustle, building a part-time business, just like what I did. Now let's talk about the goods and the bads of a job. Let's dive in with the goods first. The first thing is safety. You feel safe physically, financially, and even emotionally and mentally because there is a bi-weekly check that is coming in that's allowing you to buy food, to put food on the table, to pay your bills so that you can still live a decent life. You're able to meet your basic survival needs versus if you were to quit your job entirely and start a business from complete scratch, then that's gonna jeopardize your safety. When you're building a business from scratch in the early stages, you should expect inconsistent income. If you even expect income at all. According to studies, most businesses take time to build before they start earning money. In fact, they say businesses on average take about 2 to 3 years to start making a profit. It will also take you time to build skills like resilience, entrepreneurial skills, the ability to learn and fail fast. And it also takes you time to build trust in relationships, which is a key component in businesses. You need to feel safe instead of being in this constant survival mode where you're in fight or flight mode and you're worried about what's gonna come next or what's happening tomorrow. And that's why having a 9-to-5 job can provide that financial and emotional safety net, security for you, so that you can feel safe, pay off your bills and meet your survival needs, and at the same time for your part-time business you can then innovate and take risks that you need to take. A 9-to-5 job can provide a foundation of safety for you. Having an emergency fund can also do that. Living at home rent-free while I was working a job was also extremely helpful for me. I also had a pretty substantial stock market portfolio, which provided another source of safety for me. Work also kept me distracted from my business. When you start a business, your mind, everything is gonna be on your business. The beginning phase is notoriously known for being the hardest stage. You're making mistakes, you're taking risks, you're testing things out. There's a lot of things going on, and it's just so hard to not think about your business and not get anxious and worried about it. When I was doing it full time, my mind was constantly on my business and it just got too overwhelming, really unhealthy. But when I started working corporate again, my stress levels and overwhelm went down so much more because I was able to then focus on my 9-to-5 corporate work. From 9 to 5, I was focused on work and I was not thinking about my business. And that helped me big time with disconnecting, just having some space from my business. And then when I came back to working my business, I'd feel less stressed out and I would have more creative ideas come through. Having a job also gave me a lot of structure and discipline. There is a saying that goes, when you are given a month to do a task, you will take a month to do that task. And when you are given 3 days to do that task, you will take 3 days to get it done. And that just speaks a lot to our ability to just focus, to prioritize, and just get things done. After I quit my job, I had so much time in my schedule, I didn't know how to use my time. I would literally wake up so late into the afternoon and I was just lazing around and I wasn't getting a lot of good quality work done. So when I got back into the groove of a corporate job again, that allowed me to really time block my days. And when I only had a few hours each day after work to work on my business, I would get things done during that period of time. And that actually made me more efficient in a way. The last benefit of a job is the connection and the emotional health. When you're working on a one-person business, you're a solopreneur, especially in the early stages, it is quite lonely because you're the only one doing everything. And there are so many times where I would spend days just not opening my mouth. I wouldn't be talking to anyone, and that is actually not very healthy. Socializing is core for us as human beings, and it's also really good for your emotional health. Not gonna lie, I did feel lonely after quitting my job, but after getting back into the workforce, I felt so much more connected with the world, and it felt really good to have a social support system. With that said, 9-to-5 jobs also has its fair share of common problems and challenges. There's the common problem of having a lack of fulfillment, maybe having meaningless work, or maybe you just don't feel connected with the company's products and services, the vision they have. And that was me with my first corporate job. And what I've learned, a lot of people were going through since I was talking to my friends, it really didn't help that companies are really mainly only focused on profits. I just didn't connect with how most companies are today, rooted in capitalistic values of only trying to make as much money as possible, to make as much profits as possible, to experience endless short-term growth. And yeah, it just didn't seem very sustainable. Not to mention, most of the profits stay at the top. Another problem is toxic bosses or toxic culture. Having a toxic boss can actually be the source of abdominal fat. Having a toxic boss can not only be detrimental for your mental and emotional health, but studies have also shown it can be detrimental to your physical health.
And the CEO's PA was there in the audience. And I was explaining that, leadership stress leaks down, that stress can lead to abdominal fat that you can't shift. And she shouted out, "So he's the reason that I'm fat." But Steve, no one laughed.
Really?
Yeah. And that's when I knew that, okay, he obviously is really stressing everyone out.
Now, in terms of my self-worth, in my first job, I was constantly questioning if I was really valuable to the company, if I really was making a significant impact. There were times when I would just think about how executives could easily just lay me off and nobody would notice the next day. I know friends and people who are constantly doubting their worth at work when they make a mistake at work, or maybe it's a slow season and there isn't a lot of work, or maybe they are doing a good job, they just still don't feel like it's enough. And that can all take a toll on you, especially if you are only relying on your job as one source of income. The last point here is not being paid your worth. And that ties back to my point earlier where I said a lot of the companies will tend to keep the profits at the top of the company instead of allowing it to really trickle down. Even a 2 to 3% salary increase every year doesn't really cover inflation today. And if you ask your boss for a raise, you're going to have to provide a lot of evidence for why you deserve a salary increase. And over time, it can really negatively impact people's perception of their self-worth. All of these points can lead to burnout. And in fact, the more you tick off of this list, the more your burnout will compound and negatively impact your physical, mental, and emotional health. So we've covered the goods with working a 9-to-5 job, we've talked about the bad, and now I want to share my tips for working in corporate or just any job. My first tip is to find meaning in the work you're doing. In my first job, I really couldn't find any meaning with the products and the services we were delivering. So I found a lot of value in the work I was doing. So for example, I didn't find meaning in working with the Excel spreadsheets, with the pivot tables and all the data, but I chose to find meaning in the way I was working. Maybe it was my attention to detail, the way I worked, how meticulous I was, how great of a team player I was, and how I was able to help other people. For my second job, I found so much more meaning in the work I was doing because it was in the public health space during the COVID-19 pandemic. I was directly working with people who was infected with COVID over the phone, and I also started to see my job as just a way for me to pay the bills, it would give me safety and the security for me to then pursue my passions outside of work hours. I could go travel, I could splurge on my family and close ones. That made me feel content and very much at peace. My second tip is to work for a company with a better culture that makes you feel safe, because I did that and I really do believe it was worth the 15% pay cut. My second job was in the public health space, so I wasn't working for a corporate where their priority was to meet shareholder expectations and to just make money at all expenses. No, they genuinely cared for our mental health and our well-being. Every day at 3 or 4 p.m. they would do a 10 to 15 meditation. It was so relaxing. And even when things got really stressful, there was a lot of communication from the higher ups, and they were doing whatever they could to really best support us as employees. Basically, they were very much in touch with humanity. All the employees loved working there. In fact, we all wanted to recommend everyone else to work in this company. The third tip is to take really good care of yourself and to set boundaries, because if you're not going to do that for yourself, nobody is going to do it. Don't wait thinking your workplace is going to miraculously do that for you. My first job, it honestly felt like my whole life revolved around this one job. Even though work would be done at 5 p.m., the rest of the day or the weekend would be impacted by work. How I felt about myself, how I felt in my body, my physical body's energy, everything else I did was because of work. If I went partying, if I went for a drink, if I went to get a workout in, it was all to shake off the stresses of work. And there was a period of time when I went on a bunch of dates and I was dating. The root reason was because I wanted to shake off the work stress again, and I wanted to feel valued since work wasn't giving me the value I really was hoping for. And if I was not pursuing my dreams of recording a YouTube video or showing up online, it was because I didn't have the energy to do so and I lost the confidence in myself to do that. But in my second job, right after work, I would close off my laptop, I would slide it under the bed so it's out of sight, out of mind, but I would be really proud of the work I've done that day. I gave myself a lot of grace. Like after work, I would give myself an hour just to shake off, work things, go for a walk, take a hot shower, get in some movement. Work was just a part of my life and it didn't affect the other things I was doing for myself. When I went to work out, it was because I genuinely wanted to work out. When I did self-care things, it was because I genuinely loved myself and I wanted to take care of myself. I was able to prioritize myself and really take care of myself to feel really good so that when I did go to work, I was feeling really good as well. And when I worked on my business after hours or before work hours, I was really happy and focused. It's really different than the first scenario. My next tip is to practice loving yourself and to unlearn the system which has been feeding off of you feeling not enough to basically work you to your bones. I will say that the system and the society we have today is programmed to wire us into a lack mode, a survival mode instead of abundant mode. Remember, your job doesn't define you. It's so important to do the inner work to ground back into who you are, to rebuild your confidence and give yourself the love you really do deserve. Now, my last tip is to experiment and try different lifestyles. You don't have to go on one extreme to only work a 9-to-5 job or the other extreme of full-on quitting your 9-to-5 job to start a business from scratch. You can do both. Like you could work a job and build a business, or you could work a part-time job and also build your business on the side. There are so many ways you can get creative with things. At one point, I was working 3 part-time jobs, 2 of them being remote, while I was building my business, and I was doing just fine. There is no one right answer. This is your life. You get to make the decision. After all, you are gonna be the one living it, nobody else. That said, I hope this video helped you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.